Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you, so let's begin. My name is Steven, and I will be telling you a story I wouldn't have believed if it didn't happen to me. Life has a funny way of flipping everything upside down when you least expect it. One moment, I was standing at the altar, waiting for the woman I loved, thinking my future was set. The next, I was staring at my phone, reading a text that shattered everything I thought I knew about love, commitment, and the person I was supposed to spend forever with. For almost 2 years, I was in what I thought was the perfect relationship. My fiancée, Michelle, and I had built a life together. We had dreams, plans, and a wedding date marked on the calendar that was supposed to be the beginning of our forever. I was sure of her, sure of us. I had no doubts. From the moment I proposed and she said yes with tears in her eyes, I thought my life was set. I was done searching. I had found my person. I counted down the days until I could finally call her my wife. As the wedding day got closer, anticipation started building. My family was thrilled. Relatives began flying in from out of town. Some I hadn't seen in years, but they all showed up for the big day. My best friends were hyped. One of them even joked about how he never thought I'd be the first to settle down. On the wedding day, I woke up feeling nervous, but excited. Everything was set. The venue was decorated, guests were arriving, and I was wearing the suit I had carefully picked out. My best man clapped me on the back, telling me to relax. "This is your big day, man. Enjoy it." And I believed him. The ceremony was supposed to start at 2 p.m. At 1:58, I stood at the altar. The guests were settled in, whispering among themselves, waiting for the moment Michelle would walk down that aisle. The officiant gave me a reassuring nod. I smiled back ready. But then nothing happened. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I kept my smile, but I could feel the shift in the room. Guests started glancing around, murmuring to each other. My parents exchanged concerned looks. Michelle's parents seemed just as confused, turning in their seats, probably expecting her to come rushing in any second. At 15 minutes, my best man leaned in. "Maybe she's just running late. Last-minute dress fixes or something." I nodded, pretending to believe that. 30 minutes passed. By then, the mood in the room had changed completely. My mother looked at me with silent sympathy, like she already knew what I wasn't ready to accept. Then, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I grabbed it quickly, and when I unlocked my phone and read the message, my stomach dropped. "I can't do this, Steven. I'm sorry." That was it. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. I immediately tried calling her. It rang once, then went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. By the third call, my hands were clammy, my breath unsteady. I turned to Michelle's parents, hoping and praying they had some kind of answer. But the confused looks on their faces told me everything. They didn't know. Her mother's eyes darted around. Her father pulled out his own phone and stepped out of the room, probably trying to call her, just like I was. By now, the guests knew something was wrong. A few got up and quietly left, pretending they had somewhere else to be. My groomsmen stood stiffly by my side, unsure of what to say. And honestly, neither did I. I had never felt that level of humiliation before. One moment, I was the guy about to get married. The next, I was just some fool standing alone at the altar. What was I supposed to do? Announce to everyone that the wedding was off? I took a deep breath. "She's not coming," I said, my voice sounding foreign to my own ears. It was the first time I had said it out loud. Michelle was gone. People started leaving in groups. Some awkwardly patted me on the shoulder as they passed by, muttering things like, "I'm so sorry, man," or "If you need anything, let me know." Others couldn't even look me in the eye. Through it all, there was only one person who didn't leave my side. Betty, Michelle's younger sister. She was the only one who rushed up to me, while everyone else backed away. She looked up at me, her face filled with genuine concern, and whispered, "Steven, I'm so sorry." And for some reason, those words hit differently coming from her. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just stood there, staring at the exit, hoping against all logic that Michelle would walk back through those doors, tell me this was all some stupid joke, and everything would go back to normal. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the half-empty glass of vodka on the table, as if the answers were at the bottom of it. Everything from earlier felt like a bad dream, but no matter how many times I replayed it, the reality was the same. I kept asking myself, what went wrong? We had spent almost 2 years together. We had talked about our future, made plans, and dreamed of a life we were going to build. So how could someone who claimed to love me do this? And why didn't she have the decency to say it to my face? My friends, my family, strangers. They had all watched me stand there like a fool, waiting for a bride who was never going to walk down the aisle. If she had doubts, why didn't she talk to me? If she didn't want to marry me, why did she let things go this far? I had spent months preparing for this wedding, making sure everything was perfect for her. And, in the end, I was the one left picking up the pieces while she disappeared. In the days that followed, friends reached out, trying to help in the only way they knew how. They told me to move on, that I had dodged a bullet. Some even tried setting me up with other women. But I wasn't interested. Dating felt impossible. I could barely get through a full day without my mind circling back to Michelle, wondering where she was and why she did what she did. The only person who didn't treat me like a broken mess was Betty, Michelle's younger sister. At first, I thought she was just being polite, checking in because it was the right thing to do. But she kept showing up. She sent messages, made sure I ate, and even forced me to step outside when all I wanted to do was shut the world out. "You don't have to go through this alone," she told me once. I remember nodding, but in my head, I thought, what does she know? She wasn't the one left at the altar. She stayed consistent. She never pushed, never tried to give me cheap advice or force me to get over it. She was just there. Slowly, I started realizing that her presence was the only thing keeping me from drowning in my own thoughts. After Michelle left me at the altar, I spent weeks trying to figure out what went wrong. I kept running through every conversation we ever had, every little moment, searching for signs I might have missed. I thought I had done something to push her away, or there was some flaw in me that made her change her mind. But no matter how much I analyzed it, I just couldn't understand. She never hinted that she was unhappy. She never suggested she had doubts. Then one evening, Betty came over like she had a few times before. She brought takeout, we sat on my couch, and she started talking about random things, trying to make sure I wasn't drowning in my own thoughts. And then, out of nowhere, she got quiet. She set down her drink and took a deep breath. I could tell something was coming, but I wasn't prepared for what she said next. "Stephen, I need to tell you something. It's about Michelle." At first, I braced myself. Her voice was serious, but hesitant, like she was debating whether she should even say it. "She didn't leave you because she was scared of marriage. She didn't leave because she got cold feet. She left because she never actually ended things with her ex." I felt my whole body tense. "What do you mean?" I asked. "She was still talking to him the whole time," Betty continued. "She told you they were done, that he was toxic, that she wanted nothing to do with him. But that wasn't true. He was still in the picture. And on your wedding day, she ran away with him." I had spent all that time blaming myself. But the truth was, Michelle had been lying to me for who knows how long. And she didn't have the decency to be honest about it. I closed my eyes and took a slow, deep breath. At least now I knew. I opened my eyes, looked at Betty, and nodded. "Thanks for telling me." She gave me a sad smile. "I figured you deserved to know." And she was right. I did. If you had told me a few months ago that I'd be spending so much time with Betty, I probably would have laughed. Not because I didn't like her. Betty had always been nice, but because, in my mind, she was just Michelle's younger sister. The quiet and responsible one, compared to Michelle, who could light up a room with her presence. Sometimes for the wrong reasons. Betty was different. More reserved and thoughtful. But after Michelle left me at the altar, Betty was the only person who really stuck around. And with time, our conversations turned into hangouts. Not dates, but we found some kind of comfort in each other's company. Sometimes, we'd grab coffee and talk about nothing in particular. There was never any pressure, never any expectations. And weirdly, for the first time in months, I felt like I could just exist without the weight of everything crushing me. It wasn't until one night, months after Michelle had disappeared, that everything changed. Betty and I were sitting in my living room, half watching some old movie, when she suddenly turned to me and said, "I have to tell you something." I glanced over to match her gaze. She said, "I've always had feelings for you. Even when you were with Michelle, I thought you were too good for her." I don't know what I was expecting, but it sure as hell wasn't that. I just sat there trying to process what she had just said. Betty? Have feelings for me? It didn't make sense. Not because she wasn't a great person, but because I had never seen her that way. I opened my mouth, then closed it again, unsure of what to say. A million questions ran through my head. Wouldn't this be wrong? Would people think it's weird? What if Michelle comes back? But before I could even ask, Betty shook her head and said, "I don't care what anyone thinks. I just know how I feel, and I think you should know too." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, lost in thought. I couldn't sleep. Everything Betty had said earlier kept replaying in my head. She had feelings for me, had always had feelings for me. How could I have been so blind? I thought back to the past year, to all the moments I'd spent with Michelle, never realizing that Betty was always there, lingering in the background. I tried to push the thoughts away, but they stuck in my mind. I wasn't going to jump into anything blindly. I needed to be sure of what I felt, sure that I wasn't just trying to fill the hole Michelle left behind. So, we took things slow, letting time do the work. And as the months passed, I started to realize something. It wasn't just that Betty was there for me. She made me feel different. Being with her felt easy. And maybe that's what love was supposed to feel like all along. We kept our relationship quiet, not because we were ashamed, but because we didn't want the noise. Just two people trying to figure out if what they had was real. And as time went on, I started to realize that it was. Getting down on one knee, holding out a ring, and asking Betty to be my wife wasn't something I ever imagined. But after everything we had been through together, after months of quiet, unspoken understanding, I knew there was no one else I wanted to spend my life with. She said yes. Just like that, without hesitation. We agreed almost immediately that we didn't want a big wedding. No massive guest list. Just something small, intimate, family and close friends, nothing more. The last thing either of us wanted was a repeat of my last wedding disaster, where 100 guests had to watch me get humiliated at the altar. This time, we were keeping it simple. But, of course, nothing is ever that easy. When Betty told her family, the reaction was mixed. Some of them were happy for her. They saw how we had grown close and supported each other through everything. They genuinely believed we were making the right decision. But others didn't know how to feel about it. I can't say I blame them. It wasn't exactly a normal situation. But Betty didn't waver. She didn't care what anyone thought. She told them straight up, Michelle made her choice. This is mine. And just like that, we moved forward, whether people fully approved or not. Michelle called when I thought I had closed that chapter of my life. My first reaction? Confusion. After everything she put me through, what could she possibly have to say now? I let the call ring out. No way was I giving her the satisfaction of a response. But Michelle wasn't the type to give up easily. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again, this time a text. "Please, let's talk." I scoffed. Talk about what? I had nothing to say to her, so I ignored it. But Michelle wasn't done. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Some were short, "Can we talk?" while others were longer, filled with half-hearted explanations and vague apologies. She didn't take responsibility for anything, just danced around the real issue. At first, I didn't know why she suddenly cared after all this time. Then I found out. She had heard the news. Betty and I were engaged. She sent one final message that summed it all up. "You were supposed to be with me." I stared at my phone for a long time, feeling a mix of emotions. But one thing was clear. I didn't owe Michelle anything. So, I typed my response, short and simple. "You made your choice. And now I've made mine." I hit send, then blocked her number. And just like that, she was out of my life for good. The day I married Betty was one of my happiest days. The wedding itself was nothing like the one I had planned with Michelle. It was small, with just the people who truly cared about us. Michelle didn't show up. Not that I expected her to. And honestly, I was glad. I didn't need her presence looming over me, reminding me of the past. As I stood there holding Betty's hands, exchanging vows, I couldn't help but reflect on everything. I never imagined I'd be here, marrying her of all people. But as crazy as it seemed, it made sense. She saw me at my lowest and stayed. She chose me, not just when it was convenient, but when it was difficult. Looking back, I realized that for so long, I had been the one holding onto my past relationship. But standing there, looking into Betty's eyes, I knew this was the best decision I had ever made. A few days after Betty and I got married, I started hearing more details about what actually happened with Michelle. At first, I thought I had all the answers. Turns out, Michelle walked away because her ex asked her to. Yeah, the same guy she always called toxic. Now, if that's not bad enough, here's the kicker. He didn't even marry her. Whatever fantasy she had in her head about rekindling some great love story, about this guy suddenly changing into the man she always wanted, it didn't happen. He never wanted to commit to her. He just wanted to see if he could still control her, and she let him. From what I heard, it didn't take long before he got bored and moved on, leaving her exactly where she left me alone. When that fell apart, she came back. She didn't come back because she suddenly realized I was the love of her life. She came back because she saw that I had moved on and that I was happy with Betty. I learned some important lessons from all these. Sometimes, what feels like a disaster is actually a blessing in disguise. If Michelle hadn't left me, I never would have seen the truth about her. I never would have known what real love looks like. And I would have spent my life chasing after someone who never truly valued me. Real love isn't about excitement, it's about peace. Michelle and I had passion, sure, but it was unstable. One minute, she was all in, and the next she was gone. With Betty, it's different. There's no guessing, no chasing, no wondering if I'm enough. I don't have to fight to be loved. I just am. And that's what love is supposed to feel like. Never hold onto someone who doesn't choose you. It took me a long time to accept that. But the truth is, love is a choice. And if someone can't choose you fully, without hesitation, then they don't deserve you. Don't try to prove your worth to someone who refuses to see it. So now I'll ask you, if you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have taken Michelle back? Would you have ignored Betty's feelings? Or would you have done exactly what I did? Let me know in the comments.